There is an argument to be had that Skeleton Crew is the best Star Wars show that Disney Plus has released up until this point, and I'm here to talk about it. Welcome back to another video here on the channel. Welcome to the new year. I haven't really had too many videos in the past couple weeks due to many various different reasons, going from me being sick at the very beginning of the year to the LA wildfires causing quite the stir here in this city that I live in. When it comes to the fires, my place was not affected in any sort of way, thankfully. It didn't reach my area, but it did come close. An evacuation zone actually was, within a mile of my place, which was quite a scary time at that point. But I do have to say the firefighters and all the work that they did, especially on that night when the fires were getting close to my area, was incredible work from everybody. And anybody that is saying anything negatively about the the firefighters and all the first responders and all the people from all the different areas around the country and around the world, with Canada and Mexico also helping out with firefighters and all the work that they have done to protect people's homes, their work has been very much appreciated by literally everybody inside of Los Angeles. Everybody's so thankful for them, including myself. And so if you're able to donate in any sort of way, I highly recommend that, because a lot of people did lose their homes, a lot of people did lose everything that they had here, and they need your help. So if you're able to do that, I'll leave some links in the description below. But that is not why we are here for this video. We are here to talk about Skeleton Crew, which is the brand new Star Wars Disney Plus series. I talked about the first few episodes here on the channel, but again, due to various reasons, I wasn't able to talk about the show weekly, but we just had our finale here tonight, and I cannot wait to talk about this show because this has been a blast to watch over the past 7 weeks, and I'm really sad to see it go because, like I said, this has been one of the most fun and entertaining and just exciting Star Wars shows to come out in quite some time, and I do think that there's generally a really good argument to be had that this is the best that Disney Plus has had to offer for the franchise this far, even though there has been a really good set of shows that we've had in the past few years. And yes, before you begin to argue with me, Andor was great, Ahsoka was great, I really loved Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though I think nobody else did, but I've really enjoyed the Disney Plus Star Wars shows thus far. So let's get into spoilers for Skeleton Crew. If you have not had a chance to watch this show on Disney Plus, go check it out. It's really fun. Let's come back here and let's just jump right into it. So let's just go down the series character by character, talking about what I loved about this series, because the characters are a large part of the reason why the show was as good as it was. And let's start off talking about Jude Law as Jod Na Nawood, as the Jedi type character in this show that was actually a pirate the entire time, that turned out to be the villain of this series. And I really loved this turn. Again, I wasn't able to talk about his turn a couple weeks ago when that happened in, I believe, episode like 6 or 7 maybe, but his turn to the dark side and going against the kids was such a thrilling, change of pace for this character, because he bounced off of the kids so well throughout the entirety of the series, just being this more, Han Solo type of character, this, grizzled type of, scoundrel with possibly a heart of gold, and you think that it's going to go in that way, but it doesn't, and he turns out to be quite a scumbag, threatening these kids with a lightsaber, although not going as far as some other characters in Star Wars has gone when it comes to pointing a lightsaber at kids. He was still quite a threatening presence in the show. And one of the revelations that you find out inside of this finale, which I absolutely loved, is his backstory. And no, they don't flash back to Order 66 or anything like that, because he wasn't a Jedi or a youngling inside the Jedi Temple. Unlike a lot of the other origin stories that they have for characters like this in this era, he was just a kid on a random planet living in a hole, starving, when he was found by a Jedi. And this Jedi was able to teach him certain things, but she was soon captured by, I'm assuming, the Inquisitors at the time, and was killed right in front of his eyes, which taught him a very hard lesson that this galaxy is not good, that terrible things happen here all the time, and the only thing that really matters is making your way, surviving, and cold hard credits, as he says inside of this finale. And that is kind of what shaped his personality up until this point, being this pirate that has gone through the galaxy, that has betrayed his other pirate brethren, or has been betrayed by his other pirate brethren, and has just kind of been bouncing throughout the galaxy trying to make a living off of this.
If you defy me, punishment will be severe.
You all now work for me.
And another thing that I really appreciate about his character, specifically here in the finale, was his line that says he never really wanted to hurt anybody. He lets Wim and Fern and their parents go at the end of this episode in that tower once the shield has been taken down, because he knows he has lost. Yes, he easily could have shot them at that point. He still had a weapon, whereas the others were not able to, fight back, essentially. I think he very much could have killed them if he really did want to, but he didn't really want to. That's not really what he wanted. He just wanted to get his credits. He wanted to take over this planet. He wanted to, be the new supervisor of this place that made all these, credits for the galaxy, and he wanted to just take it over all for himself, but he really at his core didn't want to hurt these other kids, and I think I appreciate that. I think that gives this character some depth, because even though he was threatening them and doing all these terrible things and being very much an imposing threat throughout the last few episodes of the series, he does still have some moral line that he will not cross, and I appreciated that about the character. But really, the stars of the show were the kids, and I really did like all 4 of our young actors that played our characters of Wim, Fern, KB, and of course Neel inside of this series. And I really did appreciate Wim's arc, I think possibly the most of everybody, because this is the kid that kind of sparked everything in that first episode when he pushed that button on the ship that took them off of Aten in the first place. This character who had a spark of adventure, who wanted to, go out into these stars and go on this grand adventure to be a Jedi. The things that he looked up to was all pointed towards that, the legends that he read onto his like little storybook tablet thing that he had that you get to see in the closing credits of the finale, which I thought was a pretty cool touch. But I really enjoyed seeing this character, realize what the galaxy actually is, and to meet a Jedi for him to only, turn evil in the end of it, and to do all these terrible things, and for him to realize who the real good guys were. And I also really loved his interactions with his father inside this finale, because of course we do finally get to see these characters reunite inside of this finale, and you get to see them, embrace each other, and he gets to see his dad be a badass, which is really great to see him look over to his dad, to see him do these really cool things with the speeder bikes, which I absolutely loved, and to see him look up to the X-Wings instead of looking up to the Jedi, to be, I want to be a Jedi when I grow up. I want to be somebody that is not obtainable to me. But now this character is looking up at the X-Wings and thinking, I want to be an X-Wing pilot. I want to be one of the real heroes of the galaxy. And I think that is very inspiring, especially for younger audiences watching the show. And of course, bouncing off of Wim, you have Fern, who is really the leader of this group of kids in a lot of ways, and you get to see her deal with her imposter syndrome throughout this series, which I thought was a really good storyline for this character to have. And I thought that those, more tender and quiet conversations that she had with Wim throughout the series, and how you have Wim kind of learning to kind of step up and be more of a leader throughout this based off of what he, saw Fern do throughout this series, and you get to see Fern learn how to maybe take some risk and to be a little more reckless at some points, and to really, fight for what she believes in from women. They kind of learn from each other throughout the series and kind of mirrored each other's arcs, which I thought was another really great touch. And yes, all these child actors were really great in this series, but I think the young actress who played Fern was phenomenal throughout this entire series. I thought that she was just a real highlight in all of this, especially in the finale when she screams thinking that KB had crashed the ship towards the end of the episode, which was a really truly, emotionally affecting moment for me inside of this series. And I thought that this young actress did a great job selling her performance throughout the entire show. And then you have the greatest character to ever don the small screen in Neel, which this character was such a joy to watch throughout the entire series. And I really did love that fourth episode that was kind of the Neel episode, to see him kind of stand up and be brave for once, even though he's been the one that's been kind of afraid of this adventure throughout the entirety of the series, and to see him stand up for himself, to see him stand up against SM-33, to see him, pass out in fear afterwards once SM-33, collapses on top of him. So many great comedic moments with this character, and even seeing him throughout this finale when his little speeder bike was shot out and he went flipping through the air. I had never been more scared for a character in my life, but of course he learned his lessons from that fourth episode again, which I think is another thing that this show did really well, which was setting up little tiny details throughout the series, like for knowing that she can essentially manipulate a droid to, believe and to think exactly what she wants the droid to believe and think, to, hide information from her in order to, reveal secrets later on, which is what she discovered was SM-33 in that same episode. And you have Neel, dealing with the child soldier on that planet in episode 4, and, seeing this giant weapon that they had on top of one of their buildings, and seeing it here in the finale and realizing, oh, our planet is the same as that one, and there was this giant gun that I can possibly go to help KB essentially fly out to space to, call over to Kim to get to the X-Wings to come save the day. And I just love little details like that. And so even Neel, even though he was shot out during the beginning of this episode and was, kind of separated from the rest of the group, he was still an integral role in saving the day at the end of it, which is really great to see this character, spring into action without even second guessing himself for once. And probably the most emotional episode for me was actually the KB episode, where you get to see her really break down because she essentially has these disabilities. There's an accident in the past that makes her not able to do the same things that Fern can do, and you had a really great arc for that character inside of that episode, even though this character was kind of in the background for the first few episodes. Once you did get to see, Wim, which was also a great moment to see Wim repair her little metal rod that's inside of the back of her neck that's, essentially saved her life, and to see that, really toned down performance from her inside of that episode to, spring up after she's fixed to say, oh, Wim, you just saved my life, and to see Wim's reaction from that to be an actual hero, what it actually means to be a hero, unlike what Jod had represented for the Jedi throughout the series. I really love the fact that KB was able to do that for Wim's character, and was able to fly out in this episode to be able to fix the ship in the last minute, to have, a really great emotional impact of thinking that KB could have possibly crashed the ship and been in serious peril at the end of that episode. And I just also really love this character's interactions with both Wim and with Fern. And then, of course, we have Nick Frost as the voice of SM-33, which is such a great name for a pirate droid inside of the universe of Star Wars. There's so many layers to that name. I absolutely love it. But his voice was perfect for this show as well, being that pirate type droid. If you think that Nick Frost is voicing a pirate droid inside of Star Wars and you think of what that would sound like, it's exactly what it would sound like. It is very much a pirate type of thing. And that's also what I really loved about the tone of this show, is the fact that it was a pirate space adventure, which was really great to see. It is Goonies in space. It is Goonies in Star Wars. It is Flight of the Navigator in Star Wars. And I think this show firmly sits on my Letterboxd list of kids on bikes, which is a really great genre that I absolutely love. And in the same ranks as something like E.T. or Goonies or Stand By Me, and really great coming of age stories in that era of movies where you got to see very young kids go on adventures like this. And I think that Smee or SM-33 was a great, a character to bounce off of these kids, to either be a friend or a foe to them at other times, when he, of course, had the loyalty of Jod or the loyalty of Fern at times. I really love that back and forth, but this character was also just a joy to see. And obviously a lot of the credit has to go to Jon Watts being the showrunner of the show, and the excellent, group of directors that they had for this series, including the Daniels, including David Lowery and Bryce Dallas Howard and Jake Schreier, who is directing the upcoming Thunderbolts movie, and also Lee Isaac Chung, who has directed Minari and some episodes of The Mandalorian as well. And just the set of directors that they had for this series was really great. But I think what Jon Watts did really great into this show was to create a 4-quadrant show, which is, I think this is my argument as to how or why I think that this is possibly the greatest show that Star Wars has released up until this point on Disney Plus. Because yeah, sure, you have Andor, which I do think is a better written show overall. It is just one of the best things on television in general, but it is very much for the adult Star Wars fans, for the people who want a more dramatic and serious take on the universe that it has a lot more of a political pull to it. And then you have Ahsoka, which I absolutely love as a fan of Clone Wars and Rebels and the animated stuff, which of course, if you have people who have not dug into Star Wars as deeply as I have when it comes to those animated shows, I don't think you're going to appreciate a show like Ahsoka as much. And then you have Obi-Wan Kenobi, which again has been very divisive for some silly reasons and some actual good reasons, but I also did really enjoy that show. But when you have Skeleton Crew, you have this series, there's a very tight show that has a very simple script, that has great callbacks, that has great characters, that is very likable, that appeals to both young kids and to adults equally the same. It is a 4-quadrant series, and I think that's what Jon Watts does really great in films like his Spider-Man series that he did. Those Spider-Man films were very popular for a reason, and him going into the Star Wars universe with a really great idea, and for Disney and Lucasfilm to let him explore that idea and to create a show as fun as this one, I really appreciate that. And that's one thing that actually really frustrates me with the Star Wars fandom at large, because I think the Star Wars fandom is vastly different. Everybody has different opinions, and it's impossible to please everybody with any sort of project. And so I really hope that Disney and Lucasfilm keep the ability to do what they are doing right now, which I know a lot of people will scream at me for saying this in the first place, because you won't get projects like this if you can't have a director like Jon Watts go in to Lucasfilm to pitch a really great story-based idea to Disney for them to greenlight that project to get something really special and different like this show here that we just had on Disney Plus. That won't exist if you're not able to do that stuff, if you're kind of shoehorned into a box to say that the continuity and every single film has to directly connect to the last one, like Marvel. Star Wars is a very different franchise from Marvel, and I think that DC and James Gunn, what he said about story building, which is what Marvel does, versus world building, I think that Star Wars is more in line with the world building type thing, where you can't have a show like The Acolyte exist, you can't have a show like Skeleton Crew exist, you can't have a new Daisy Ridley Star Wars movie in the works, you can't have the Mandalorian stuff that's tied into the Ahsoka, that's tied into all the other movies and shows that are in that era of Star Wars. You can have all these vastly different and diverse sets of Star Wars things and Star Wars projects, like Andor, more adult-based show that is, going back to back with Skeleton Crew and having a back and forth between those two shows, releasing back to back. You can have a very diverse set of shows and creatives coming into this universe to do their ideas if the story is right. And I think more Star Wars fans should be open to that idea. And one last thing that I want to shout out about Skeleton Crew specifically is the score. Every single time I watched the episode, I actually stayed and listened to the entirety of the credits, because there's a really great pirate theme that Mick Giacchino, who is, I believe, Michael Giacchino's son, who is doing the score for Skeleton Crew, which this is the type of nepotism we love because he's very talented, and the score for the show was excellent, and it was very much that a weird mix between a Pirates of the Caribbean or Pirates, swashbuckling adventure tone with Star Wars. It was a really great blend between the two, and I just absolutely loved it. There's honestly really not much about Skeleton Crew that I would criticize. I think that if I were to go ahead in a month and just rewatch all this and binge it all together as one giant 5 or 6 hour movie, I would absolutely love it. Or watching it week by week has been a blast as well. And so if you have not checked out Skeleton Crew and you're here, watching this review and you got here to the end, I implore you to watch this show because it is easily one of the best things that Star Wars has done in quite some time. But those are just going to be my thoughts on Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of this series if you did finish it. I'm very curious to hear how this would also rank to you with all the other Disney Plus Star Wars shows. I do think that personally Andor is better just by a hair for me, but I think that the 4-quadrant aspect of this show, quite frankly, makes this one of the best Star Wars series that has ever been made. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. I have a review coming out for Wolfman later this weekend, which I cannot wait to get into that. And also, Presents, I believe, is the week after that, so we're going to have a lot of great, or at least hopefully great, horror January movies coming out, which I heard decent things about Wolfman so far, so I'm very excited to get into that, as well as the Sundance Film Festival. I just booked a bunch of tickets, 10 tickets for the festival, and I might, go through the program a little bit more and try to pick out a few more, try to watch a bunch of them over the 20th, I believe. The weekend of the 23rd is when Sundance is, so I'm going to have a bunch of reviews out for the Sundance Film Festival also in that week, so definitely stay tuned on the channel, subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one. I hope to see you all in my next one.